Hey, this is Mickey. I just wanted to start by saying thanks. Thanks to everybody who's been listening to our show and all the messages of support we've got. And it's really been a great journey up till now. We're only about 10 episodes old, but already we're getting, a lot more viewers than I thought, listeners than I thought, and the feedback's been incredible. And if you can just take a minute just to go and hit that subscribe button on YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes, wherever you are, and if you've got a couple of minutes, just leave a nice little review. But yeah, I mean, that subscribe button is it means a lot to us if you can hit that. And I know Willie and Jimmy both echo my sentiment here when we just like to say thanks. Thank you so much for all the great feedback, and we're so happy to be on this journey with you guys. Hey, this is Mickey. Today's sponsor is Koala Cash Coin, KKC. It's a new, fully proof of stake and masternode project with an awesome executable use case. KKC is building an e-commerce platform for merchants and consumers where the coin will be used to facilitate transactions and increase adoption. The KKC team is already working on a specific market segment for mobile and cell phones to test the platform, but it could be used for any commodity or service. They hope to launch the platform in the next few months in the Asia Pacific region, as they have investors that they are partnering with in that area. Willie and I have spent a lot of time speaking with the development team, and we really like them. They previously were involved in a community takeover, and we like these community takeovers because there are so many. I mean, the crypto community, the crypto space is like a graveyard of all these old projects. So I'd rather someone took over an old project, rather than create a new one. So we just got all these dead projects everywhere. So these guys are in it for the long haul, and So look, you can get a KKC masternode right now. They're in pre-sale for about 0.08 bitcoins. I think what's that at the moment? About $700, $600. Go to their website, kkc.space. And there's also a lot of great information, so you can try their Discord and their Telegram channel. If you go to their Bitcoin talk and thread, there's all the links there. So, great. I love it. I've got a masternode myself. KKC, Koala Cash Coin. Go check them out.
Is the live with Mickey and Willie? Strange life. With Ty and Willie. With Ty and Willie. Ty. This the live with Mickey and Willie.
Good evening and welcome to This Strange Life. I'm Mickey, the conduit between the mother-humping freaks and the geeks.
And good morning if you're in another time zone. This is Willie, the freshly shaved Delius today.
You are looking pretty sexy there, man.
Smooth, man.
Yeah.
We haven't got a new razor sponsor that I don't know about.
I went to the Thai barbershop, and the guy took about 40 minutes to shave me down to this level. Like he used like 4 different tools, and
bless him. Bless him.
It was a lot of work to look this good.
But you still got some designer stubble there, so how?
Yeah, I asked for a number 1.
Right.
And this is what I came up with.
The old cutthroat out on you.
Yeah.
You did? Or
Yeah. He did. Down here. That's why I got like a bunch of burns.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm Jimmy, a.k.a. Ryan Breadbin.
Thanks, Jimmy. And our guest today is, it's another big one for me, guys, to be honest. It's William Ramsey, author, super cool dude, investigator, many more. William, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who's William Ramsey?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on your show. I was a licensed attorney in California. I still am inactive. I'm still a member of the state bar, but I was always reading. I was like one of those people who went to college but would read more outside of the curriculum than in. And so I just was always reading and there were times when, I kind of dispensed any credibility or legitimacy for the American media long time ago, 20 years ago. So I was always angry and irritated over the fact that certain stories were not covered.
Could I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
What was the moment, like, kind of that when did that really kind of kernelize for you? When did that come to be?
I don't think it was something that happened immediately, but, in my 20s, I talked to people who were probably the old school conspiracy theorists, people who, like, questioned the John F. Kennedy assassination and things like that. And, it was a slow progress, but at a certain point, probably when I was in law school, I was like, this is a joke. When I was in law school, I interned for a guy who worked for on the Vince Foster murder. And the cover story, or the story that's been going on for years, is that he left the White House and committed suicide in Fort Marcy Park. And I was in D.C. at the time. I was actually in Northern Virginia, where I lived for 3 years. And that whole story is just a preposterous fraud. And that was another thing. Like, the media is not doing its job. It's not actually.
Right.
A lot of those people are really stenographers for the people in political power, and they're all getting paid. I think that, and you can see from the Podesta emails that were leaked by WikiLeaks that Hillary Clinton was paying, literally had a bunch of these people on the payroll, so they're dishonest.
Yep.
And so, I think that was in the mid '90s, and that was really it. And so that I watch TV to see what lies they're promoting. I don't trust anything on those spectrum. That kind of reality window for me is just it's really a very narrow tube, and I pity people who are stuck in that. I don't even know how these guys get ratings. I don't know how CNN gets money or advertisers to pay for it. I don't know anybody who's stupid enough to listen to that. Anyway, that's a long story. Anyway, so that it was. I was listening to all that stuff, and then the 9/11 happened, and there was a whole nother. I did a lot of research into the events that happened in Oklahoma City bombing. There's a lot more to that story.
Ooh.
So I was always kind of researching. I was never a public figure, but 9/11, and during the research of 9/11, there was people who were talking, there's some kind of deeper thing here. There was one guy who's passed away. His name was Colonel May. So I listened to him, and he noticed all this numerology, really just 11s. And so I said, well, does this numerology have meaning? Why is September 11th important? Why are the Twin Towers symbolic? What's going on? Why is this date? It's an important date. And that was really sent me down the rabbit hole, leading me back to Crowley. 93, 77, 11, 175 are all cult numbers. 93 is really a Crowley's number, which represents in the Kabbalah Thelema and Agape, two central themes. Crowley followers are known as Thelemites among themselves.
Thelemites, yeah.
Do what thou will. So that was really what was the seeds of my first book, Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11, and New World Order. The reason I had that title is because I think most people would not put those things together. Crowley, 9/11, New World Order. But Crowley really was kind of a New Ager, New World Order occultist. People don't think he was a Satanist. They don't know anything about Crowley. If they state that, he said he wanted to be Satan's chief of staff. So that was really, that was really a biography of Crowley that I think was contradictory to the popular analysis of Crowley, and I tied Crowley to the events of 9/11, this kind of aristocratic revolution, which was represented by those events, magical numbers, this kind of black magic type stuff. So that was my first book. My interest in Crowley continued, and then I came across the West Memphis 3 case, which the public said these guys were railroaded. It was a witch hunt. They were put in jail for wearing black, which were all little petty, superficial PR phrases that stupid people would adhere to. So I actually read the court cases, which are available on Callahan 8K, which is a website that compiled all the court cases. And I just put on my legal hat and read it. And said, these guys are, not only were they the best suspects to find convicted, they were heavily involved in the occult. And Damien Eccles himself, was on the court case. They were referencing out Crowley. They had a copy of Magic and Theory and Practice on the case, the prosecutor. So that was an interesting case. So then,
well, Eccles is he's obviously since been released, and he had a massive amount of support, didn't he, from the likes of Johnny Depp and all these guys.
I mean, all Margaret Cho, all these kind of Hollywood types came out. Betty Vedder is writing a book with him that's going to be published on all dates. It'll be Halloween. They're called High Magic, and Damien Eccles is out there practicing magic. He has a massive black sun tattoo on his back. I mean, it's off the charts.
Yeah.
He said himself, I was prosecuted for my love of the knowledge of Aleister Crowley.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating admission for a lot of reasons, because it wasn't prosecuted. I mean, he does. He ties himself. He's a known member of the OTO, which nobody really figured out. And I've done a show on the Ed Opperman about that, where the OTO references him as a member in Arkansas. So there's all kinds of research that they haven't done.
Just for our listeners, William, what's the OTO?
The Ordo Templi Orientis is actually a German secret society that was founded in the late 19th century. Crowley became its head in 1925.
What's their mission?
After some of the founding members died, there were two guys, Kellner and Royce.
What are they trying to accomplish?
Well, that's a good question. I think the reason it has its title, the OTO, which is also an ideogram for male phallus, but they tried to go back and claim to reference themselves back to the Order of Templars, this kind of group that was disbanded or destroyed in France, and they considered themselves. There's really no personal connections. They just claimed an ideological connection, and they did a lot of stuff that was kind of coming to the front of European occult societies like the Golden Dawn, which Crowley was a member. They were doing magical practices. It was a secret society. Yeah. And actually, it's an interesting thing, why Crowley became a member before he became head of it, was one of the members of the OTO came to him and said, "You're stealing our material." And they both come to the same realization and associated with ritual magic, which is involved in making sex magic. So that's the OTO.
Yeah.
But that was that one book. Let me just finish. One of my recent book is Children of the Beast, which traces Crowley's influence on the 20th century, and then I just did a movie called The Smiley Face Killers.
I love
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, just to make this a standalone podcast, William, can you just tell us a bit about the West Memphis three murders? Because that was a brutal murder. Can you just outline to our guests exactly what happened and what the circumstances?
May 5th, 1993, 3 young boys, all 8 years old, disappeared. And they went out for a bike ride. They were playing in the streets of a city called West Memphis, which is across the Mississippi River from Memphis, Tennessee. So it's a suburb, lower middle class environment. Kids went missing. The parents freaked out. They want to know where the kids are. They were found the next day, submerged in kind of a creek, a small ravine filled with water, but they were bound in a very strange way. They were tied from their wrists to their ankles. And one of the young men had his penis removed. And so it was a very brutal murder. They found out later during the autopsy that 2 of the boys were drowned in the water. They were tied and drowned. Yeah. So a particularly vicious crime.
Yeah, and this was right around the sort of satanic panic time.
That's what they said. Yeah, I mean that's a loaded term.
I know, but that's what freaked people out, and that's what led people to these kind of quick decisions and these wrong decisions.
You could say that. You could say that. I think that there was actually, if you look at the kind of court cases and look at the records, people knew there was very sketchy things happening in West Memphis in 1993. They were aware of it. There were people researching it. There was probably a cult. The police, when they interviewed people, they were making lists of people who were possible members of like a magical fraternity, like a group. And when those bodies were found, they kind of focused on somebody they knew who was capable of it, who had been in a mental institution 3 times, not just in Arkansas, but once in Oregon. Damien Eccles, whose real name is Michael Hutchison, he changed his name. So they focused on him. They interviewed him. He failed the lie detector test. He told the police, "Let me talk to my mom and I'll tell you everything you needed to know." So he talked to his mom and then he clammed up. So they didn't really have that much evidence about the murders until, they always had a suspicion of Eccles. He was interviewed by the police, and those interviews are available online. They're available in my book, where he said, "Who did it? Satanists." It was his answer. He said they probably did it, to keep the boys from screaming. There was all kinds of references to these deaths, but it was about a month later, on June 3rd, when they brought in another guy, Jesse Miskelly, and he confessed and implicated both Damien Eccles and his friend Jason Baldwin at the time, and that led to Miskelly's arrest, the arrest of Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin. They were tried separately. There's a Supreme Court case there's a couple Supreme Court cases that are involved in this case. One is the Alford plea. There's another one that prohibits people who make a statement about another from being tried together at the same trial. So they bifurcated the trial, 2 different juries. Miss Kelly was tried alone. Baldwin and Eccles were tried together. 24 people found them guilty. Eccles was sentenced to death. The other 3, I think, the other 2, life in prison. And then there was an HBO series that really brought attention to the case. There were 3, Paradise Lost. There was HBO was really out there, and people actually give it credibility. But it's a very Hollywoodized version of events. The first one, at the end, Eccles calls himself the West Memphis 3 boogeyman. But then at the second and the third, they started laying the blame on these stepfathers. And I think people, the public, the slow-brained public actually thought that these documentaries were honest, which, in my opinion, they're clearly not. And that's really what started this groundswell of support among the American public that these guys were, and it's still actually going on to this day, that these guys were a railroad witch hunt. All these terms are bandied about, satanic panic, blah, 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 instead of actually looking at the actual facts of the case. But it started a groundswell, and then it started involving celebrities, all these other people, and they actually raised, they're not unsure of the total number, but $10 to $20 million, which allowed them to obtain the best attorneys and PR people out there. There's this one guy, Lonnie Sowery from New York. Their attorney's name was Reardon from California, a great appellate attorney. I mean, these guys they got out the A team, and in August 2011, basically what they did is they did their own DNA test. They claimed all this stuff, and really there was a court case that said that in Arkansas that if DNA wasn't tested in older cases, that could bring up and look at those old cases again. And so they kind of used that as a lever. And the old judge left, the prosecutor left, and these new guys basically allowed a plea deal, an Alford plea, not Alfred, but Alford plea, based upon North Carolina versus Alford, which allows you to publicly say you're innocent while pleading guilty on a piece of paper. So they all pled guilty. They wrote it down on a piece of paper, and they're under probation, currently guilty. But now there's still kind of this group of people who say they're innocent without really proffering many facts. But there's a guy out right now who's trying to claim they're innocent. His name's Bob Rupp. The podcast is Truth and Justice, and he's just going through this long, drawn out.
Yeah, I've heard you speak about that on the Ackerman report. Yeah. So what's your stance, William? Where do you?
They're still guilty. They still did it, and they're the right suspects, and they've all admitted doing it. They've all, in one way or another. And they're really the telling part of the case, whether the court trials were biased or ineffective, or the jury's got information from other things. The reality is that Jesse Miskelly was convicted and then confessed again and again and again, recorded confessions in front of his attorney, saying he did it. His attorney says, it's not good for you. We're just going to bust up your appeal. No, I want to confess. So he keeps saying that, and you can listen to those online. They're all there. So the evidence, they've claimed all this kind of deceptive statements. We're going to look for the real murderers out there, Jason Baldwin and Damien Eccles, but they haven't really come up with anybody. They keep trying to blame the stepfather, Terry Hobbs, by saying that his hair was found there, but that was never tested in a court of law. It's pure PR. So, I think that's really the main problem with the public of America. They can't really tell actual literal facts of things that happen in time and space between that and
Do you
PR,
think Americans ever have been able to, or do you think it's worse now?
No, probably not. I think it's gotten
Seems worse
I think
now.
I think the advent of PR, going back to Bernays, the willful manipulation of the mind through media has really gotten worse and worse and worse and more effective.
Yeah, they're super sophisticated at doing it now.
Yeah. I mean, the guy that they hired, Lonnie Sawyer, is legit. I mean, the guy is very sharp, and it's very brazen, because I think through their PR people, and I don't have evidence, I've never talked to the PR people, but I think that they really are encouraging people, even if they've been found guilty, to actually go out on PR tours and go out in the public to make them look like they'd be innocent, And it's a very similar to Now, what was that Italian case of that girl? The same thing that she was in.
Oh, Amanda Knox.
Amanda Knox, right? So she's going on PR. She's going on these TV shows.
She's got a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, Netflix, and you know, she at the very beginning, if you look at the court case, she was involved in deception. She actually blamed the black guy, this Lumumba character, her boss at a bar, and he actually went to jail for a week based upon her implication of him. So, you know, there's definitely at the beginning of that case too, there's a real problem. So I think that this PR thing is really, and I wrote a section in my book, Abomination, titled "The Court of Public Opinion," because it's really important that people realize they're being PR'd, because I don't think they realize that in this case at all, in the West Memphis 3 case.
Yeah. It's interesting. The court of a public opinion, like, if that weighs in first, how do you come back from that? You know,
yeah, but the jury aren't supposed to be allowed to hear any of that stuff, though, are they?
Those are excellent points. There's, I think, a real problem, too, in these cases. And you see this kind of environment, this kind of this new, really a business that goes back to the Adnan Syed case, where these public people can go back. Serial, right?
Great stuff, yeah.
Well, that dude is another guy that they got the right suspect, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that they're like, oh, they parsed through it, but this was a distortion of, and there was another one, Making of a Murder.
Yeah.
That's another distortion.
Did you watch the recent Netflix one, Evil Genius? Have you heard of that yet?
Yes, I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
The story with a collar bomb in 2003 in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about Making a Murder, Adnan Syed, Serial, this whole thing of Truth and Justice is that they are glossing over all of the things a court of law uses to ascertain the truth. These kind of evidentiary hearings, these evidentiary rules, what's going to go in, how's the jury going to see this. These are steps that have built up in the common law for hundreds of years.
Right. But if you're not a lawyer, it's hard to appreciate the value that has.
I would agree with that, 100%. But they should. I mean, it's kind of like some of these people think that you can ascertain the truth of a case by going to McDonald's, sitting down on a piece of, a chair and getting a Big Mac and just figuring out we got it right. You know?
Yeah.
Like we beat the jury. The jury didn't, you know.
What do you think about like journalism that has like they've reached a conclusion and they work backwards with evidence to try to prove that conclusion?
Well, that's
cognitive bias, right?
I mean, the Bob Ruff has been caught with this, stating that he wanted exoneration. He's written that out a long time ago, and he's put forward all these PR narratives that are conflated with the actual facts of the case. And he publicly states, well, we haven't come to a conclusion yet. So, and all of his earlier cases are moving towards exoneration. So I think that he's actually going to try to get these guys who are duly convicted and who actually signed. They signed in 2011, August 2011, with the best attorneys, still said they were guilty. So that's almost going to be impossible to overcome in any other court of law.
So let's bring this right back up to date then. Back to 2018 and your documentary, William, on the smiley face killers, and there's still a little bit of this going on, isn't there? This little bit of people don't want to accept the facts, do they?
Before we go too deep in that, can we get like a 1 minute catch up on exactly what the smiley face killers are? Yeah,
William, can you do that for us?
Absolutely. So what the smiley face killers references are a series of cases involving young men who disappear and are found in water. And it goes back probably 25 years, actually 20 years, to cases that were discovered by two policemen in New York, two guys, Jeff Gannon and Duarte, I can't remember his first name. And they started working with another professor by the name of Gilbertson, who was from Minnesota, and who noticed these cases. They were centered around big cities or college towns, that these cases were happening where young men would disappear. And the book they wrote, which is really the seminal book on the cases, is called Case Studies in Forensic Drowning. So they took a very scientific approach. They noticed that some of these men, the times when their body was found means that they were still alive when they were before their bodies were found. Like there was a time that they had to be alive and were kept somewhere. They also noticed a lot of them had GHB in their bodies, which is a substance that's endogenous. Yeah, exactly. Roofie. It's endogenous to the human body, but at high doses, can incapacitate you and you forget everything. So some of these people have that. So that's really They have 14 cases in that book, and then people have kind of still studied it. And I got interested in the case because of when I was researching Children of the Beast about Aleister Crowley. A lot of these people had the smiley face. You see, Alan Moore uses the smiley face in his book, The Watchmen.
Well, me and my brother here, Jimmy, we're old acid house kids, rave kids from the UK. Right. We love dance music, and so I used to wear the old smiley face badge, and people used to put it up at the acid house concerts and stuff. So it was strange to me actually to see that this series of murders tagged onto that already kind of iconic symbol that we knew about.
Yeah,
Jimmy,
it's interesting because it was found in some of these cases. So it's really Gannon and Gilbertson and Duarte who noticed this correlation to the smiley face. There was one case, Guy out of Michigan, where there was a smiley face left at his gravestone 2 years after he died. So all kinds of really sketchy, suspicious, usually made in a spray paint. But that was really how I got interested. And probably the first case that I really tracked was a guy by the name of Joey LaBute. That was early 2016 in Columbus, Ohio. And when he disappeared, I was following that case. I said, if that guy shows up in water, I'm going to fall out of my chair. And sure enough, about 18 days later, he showed up in the Scioto River.
Oh, man.
The police, so the police there have never said that he... it's interesting because it's one of the few cases where they don't come to a conclusion, right? They just openly stated, we don't know how he got in the water. And during the weekend he disappeared, there was the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, which is a bodylifting competition that happened there. So there
GHB,
was kind of
right? That's tied heavily to bodybuilders.
LaBute was on. This is actually a common element to a lot of these cases. These guys are on their phones, and there was a weird text that he sent before he disappeared. His car was found where he left it. But that was really how I started researching the cases. And so there's a lot of cases.
William, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for our listeners as well who might be from the UK or from Australia, it's not just the US, is it? We've got the Manchester canals, the Liverpool canals, we've got the Pusher, in inverted commas, we've got Australia in the harbour there. So this really does span across the globe, right? This could be an international ring of murderers.
That's a great point. And there's some in Amsterdam. There was one in Poland recently.
Yeah.
There was one in Hamburg, a guy from the UK. Forgot what his name was.
Any on the West Coast?
Yeah, so there's a lot in Portland, believe it or not. Some in Seattle, Vancouver. I could not include all the cases in my documentary. My documentary is 3.5 hours. It's way too long, but I literally could have made another 3.5 hour documentary. But there's cases all over the place. There's a case here on the West Coast. They never found his body, but his name was Van Zandt, who disappeared. Younger guy disappeared out of the harbor area of Hermosa Beach, which is really a strange case. So there's a lot of cases that. So anyway, that's really the first case was Joey LaBute. But yeah, and then I'm watching these UK. There's a lot of cases in Bristol, the western side of the UK.
Anywhere where there's water, right? Anywhere where there's a canal system or.
Could there be a lake?
Yeah, William, do you know of anything in Thailand, in Bangkok? Has there been anything here?
So there was one case that I covered from November of last year. His name was Andrew Apperley. He was actually from northern, the Bristol area of the UK.
Yeah.
But he disappeared on Koh Phangan Island.
Kopangan, yeah.
So and it fit all the same aspects of these type of cases. The guy got drugged. He was sending strange texts to his friends. And
in fairness, that's where they do the full moon party, the world famous full moon party.
I remember that guy's case.
Aspects, there's actually correlations between some of these cases and the full moon. So there's definitely dates that run hot, Halloween type
I saw the Halloween is,
Yeah, so there's a lot. But this guy, Andrew Apperley was a remarkable.
I'm going to look into it. Yeah, you piqued me.
So what's your theory or one of your theories?
What are the pervasive?
It's very complex. It's global.
They're basically. I came to the conclusion they're not money. Nobody gets their, ATM rated, so there's no monetary incentive. So why are these people being abducted? And I came to the conclusion they're largely homosexual type crimes, but with an occult kind of overlay. But there's still, there was recently a Discovery ID show that talked about the smiley face killers. There's another one on a podcast I was talking to, Conspiranormal, where the investigators say, "Oh, well, you got 35 or 40 cases," and I was like, "Whoa, you're way too low. We're at least over 150 or 200." So I think really one of the problems of people coming to analysis is these cases, they just need to look at all the facts. I didn't have all the facts. I actually worked with the great researcher, guy by the name of Jim Smith, who was the chief researcher of the film. And so he was on Conspiranormal with me talking to him about it. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge issue, and there's all kinds of reasons why they're not covering it up. I talked to an ex-FBI agent, D'Souza, on my YouTube channel, and he said there's a lot of things involved. There's very meaningful reasons why they're not investigating these cases. They really don't want to I think the authorities don't want to acknowledge that there's a threat for a lot of financial reasons, because some of these college towns,
university.
I mean, a lot of these guys are college students. A guy who just died recently, Dakota James, in Pittsburgh, was a graduate student, same kind of MO as everything else. At night, party, drinking at bars, on his phone, disappears, ends up this was a crazy case because he disappeared. Ended up showing up in the river 40 days later after mass.
So what do you make of that like incubation period of them getting abducted?
Well, I come to the conclusion in the documentary.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
William, first thing is, so what, if you don't mind saying, or you might want to point people to your documentary, but do you have any theories about what's going on
I have conclusions.
Here?
I don't think that these deaths are theoretical. I think that they're all part of a larger pattern.
Yeah,
so
do we think there might be a group of serial killers? Do you think these, because they're all very athletic, very handsome, skinny guys? Do you think they're being kidnapped and tortured for days, and then
Yes, that's exactly what I think.
But because William as well, what can you just tell us? What are some of the crazier facts about these cases? Because the Chris Jenkins case in particular, where they searched the river, they searched it a few times, and then they go back, and then suddenly a few months later he's found in the water, and yet he's the autopsy says, well, he's only been in the water a few weeks, so he's obviously been held somewhere before. What are the weirder aspects of these cases, William?
I would say that's basically the same thing. I think that a lot of those cases, they're in places where they've already been searched. So many. Deacon Wilkins out of Bristol is an incredible case because they brought out the underwater team to look for the body, and I have a video of it in my documentary, and then his body shows up there later. And there's a smiley face down the way a place where you had to walk. Same thing with Franco Garcia, another college student outside of Boston. They searched the reservoir where he was at, can't find it. His mom's on there saying, I think he's still alive. My heart tells me he's still alive. And then he shows up back in the reservoir later. So, these guys are very clever. People doing it, it's groups and individuals, in my opinion. The same thing, Zach Marr. Tommy Booth is a fascinating case because that was one of the Gannon Gilbertson cases that was outside of Philadelphia, who in a place searched over and over again. His body is found in a very obvious place. The research says that he's only been dead for 2 days. His teeth are fractured, and there's some kind of weird hypersigil with a smiley face on the back of the bar where he was last seen, close to where his body was found.
Jimmy, sorry, William. I'm curious, sort of devil's advocate question more than anything here. Is it unusual for the police to have gone out, have searched a body of water, and then a few days later or X amount of time later, that the body then appears?
Well, if they're using underground sonar and radar, and then the body appears, and if that happens in a pattern over and over again, I've shown in my documentary at least 10 of those events where they've searched and then the body shows up. Another one, a remarkable case, is Shane Montgomery, also out of Philadelphia. He was found in 4 feet of water where they should have found him right away. There was a massive search. You can see it on the video, and they found his car keys. So they could find his car keys and then not find him
That's crazy.
Until weeks later.
Yeah, and they're often found.
This is a huge pattern. The police are not seeing it at a global level. They're seeing it, and I think a lot of the researchers only saw it as regional levels. People like Gary J. out of Manchester, who's making a documentary. He's followed the pusher.
Manchester, UK.
Another girl, yeah. Another girl in Boston. She, her name was Elise Soper. She had a decent sized blog called Cryptid Antiquarian, and then she wrote about the missing men in Boston, and all of a sudden her readership spiked, and it's a very interesting thing to read a lot of the posts that are in these Boston cases on Cryptid and Antiquarian, because there's probably like something crazy like 2,000 people leaving comments like, oh, this is not random, this is something crazy.
And the thing is, these people are found, I think an important detail with them is that these people are found face up. And if people,
some of them are face up, some of them are in strange places, some of them.
Yeah. So what's the significance of face up?
Because if you were to drown naturally, the natural thing to happen is that your arms are weighed down, and you end up, but your back is up in the water and your face is down.
So it's evidence that.
Yeah. Foul play.
One thing I show, and I think I dispel this notion that these guys have accidentally drowned, is that in my documentary, I show many of these victims, in my opinion, victims, walking around on their phone, totally
out of it,
upright. Franco Garcia, you can see him walking. Same thing about Wilkins, who I talked about. Zach Mars upright. All these guys are clearly okay. They're ambulatory.
I was going to say that.
So then, this kind of some people have lumped these cases as drowning victims, but. And then there's actually an FBI, which is really shameful of them, but they lump these type of cases into general drowning cases that happen during vacations and stuff. Like these are unusual cases. A lot of these are all nighttime deaths.
So William, what do you think of the way that this is marginalized by like what I would call like mainstream press or mainstream intelligence? Like they're very quick to poo-poo it, right?
Yeah, so I think that's it. These are categorized almost to a T as accidental drownings. They're not seen, and I think that's one of the big perfect crime elements of these crimes, is that the police are not treating the bodies at first blush as murder victims. They say, oh, we just found them in the water. So almost to a T, these guys are like pulled out. The autopsies aren't made public. A lot of this, and so I think it's a lot easier for the police to just put it up as an accidental drowning or treat these people like murders.
Yeah,
which I believe they are. One of the guys I call Victim Zero, some other people have called him Victim Zero, is Patrick McNeil, or one of the earliest victims, 1997, college student, New York City, died in the same place. They found another young man in the same kind of water treatment facility in the south part of the Hudson River. But he, and they don't know how he got there. They know he left a bar. He was sick. He was either drugged or something, too drunk. But the remarkable thing about the McNeil case is that later, 5 or 6 years later, his parents got the autopsy, which wasn't public. And in the autopsy, their son had been tortured with a blowtorch on the upper part of his body.
Hey, this is Mickey. Bitcoin W Spectrum, or BWS, is a community-run, eco-friendly proof-of-stake project that rose from the ashes of one Satoshi territory all the way up to 50 sats in no time at all. And when they're looking at this project, it's not hard to see why. One of the biggest highlights we see is the development team, awesome, committed, and experienced. They took on this project when the previous team abandoned it and rescued it and brought it back to the promised land. A few fundamentals that set BWS apart. Lightning fast payments. You aren't going to be waiting 10 minutes for this like Bitcoin. No. 9% POS ROI. This is passive income that you can earn. Plus only 100 million supply. And we worked it out to, I think the inflation is about 3 or 4% per year. So even by 2025, there's only going to be 130 million coins in existence. This, for a 50 sat coin, is pretty damn good. Additionally, and maybe the most impressive aspect, is that for being such a small project, BWS has managed to be listed on so many great exchanges: CryptoBridge, Stocks Exchange, South Exchange, OctaX, ByteBTC, and more. Go to any of those exchanges to buy some, or go to bitcoinwspectrum.com and follow them on Twitter at bitcoinwspectrum. And Crypto Facto, my other channel, did a review of BWS and it scored super high, 90%. Go check them out, guys.
And he had burns all in the out, like he was sitting in a chair, and somebody.
And they didn't know it until
his parents didn't know it. No, there wasn't public knowledge. The police didn't tell him. So there's probably stuff in these autopsies that aren't public that are damning. I mean, so another example of Dakota James, who died 40 days. They've got the family hired Cyril Wecht to do an autopsy. Cyril Wecht, kind of a famous, very famous forensic pathologist. But he's going to do I've never seen the results of that, but yeah, there's something going on. It's not good.
Yeah, so there's a lot of repeating sort of facts and situations here. Is that they are young men. They're not fat. That they're quite slim.
They're good look. They're almost all good looking, healthy. If that's your thing,
handsome guys.
That kind of points to the homosexual aspect
in the UK. There's a sexual aspect to these crimes. Alex Todd Weller, drunk, left a gay bar, disappeared, found in water.
Exactly.
They're disappearing from bars at night time.
That's a good suspect to catch, though, right? It kind of falls in line with what you're, the guard might be down, they might be,
it's crazy. So they disappear from bars at night. They're often kicked out of the bars because they're drunk or something's happened to them.
Dakota James was actually kicked out of a bar. Jenkins was kicked out of a bar.
That's such a vulnerable.
Very interesting. Zach Mara, the case in Boston is interesting, which I don't know what the police are doing in some of these cases, but when you see two different stories, you should sit up in your chair. Zach Marr told his family and texted them inside this bar they were at, I got kicked out. They won't let me back in. And then the police interviewed the people and the bouncers of the bar, and they said, oh, that's not true. We have proof that we let him back in. Well, why is there that distinction? Because the fact that he wasn't let back in led directly to his disappearance.
Oh, yeah. And the Chris Jenkins case as well. Apparently he was kicked out. He had like a Native American costume on. It was Halloween.
It was Halloween.
He got kicked out the bar. The dogs, they got some some cadaver dogs in.
Right, bloodhounds,
Yeah, apparently there was some witnesses said there was a fight outside of this bar. And then they followed the cadaver hounds followed the scent to this car park, like as if he was bundled into the boot of a car, and then they followed it to. I mean, I think the bouncers.
I'm glad you brought up that case. Because that was one of the cases this show Discovery ID covered, where they the family who hired this. I can't believe I remember his last name. They hired an independent PR, Loesch, Loesch, who came to the conclusion he was murdered.
He had hair in his hands, didn't he, William? He had a clump of blonde hair in his hands.
This is another perfect example, just like the Patrick McNeil, where the family gets the autopsy and somebody goes, in this picture, why is there hair in his hands? The police had never disclosed that. So why? So these families all have to get these independent autopsies
and he'd been missing for several months, and yet the autopsy said he'd only been in the water for a few weeks. So where was that few months? Where was he?
I know exactly where it is, but you know what? There's tons of deaths right around that downtown area of Minneapolis. There's tons of lost.
A lot of water around there to drown them in, too. Lakes everywhere, 10,000 of them. Yeah.
I argue that all of these deaths are body dumps, that they're already dead before.
Yeah.
Right.
And that makes that's bone chilling for me, to think that they're held somewhere for weeks and tortured or whatever, and they're alive for a long time before they're fucking dumped in the thing, man. It's chilling.
And I'm sorry, I have not seen the documentary, but I'm super compelled to go do that maybe tonight. Who knows? Who knows how late I'll get home? But
I can tell you this: you will find a completely different narrative with a bunch of different facts than anything else that people have put out on this subject.
So if you were to theorize, like, these are happening all over the world, they're happening in all over the states, at least, as well.
It's like westernized countries, yeah. I mean,
can you possibly foresee a way that these killers are communicating with each other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would say it's pretty fascinating that these cases are happening with the advent of international travel and the internet itself. So
It's like encrypted chat or something like that.
something,
Yeah.
dark web, absolutely. Somebody's learning this technique.
And they're
I
all
think
around
that
religious
this is-
holidays as well, like Easter and significant.
Yeah, some people
times,
were
right?
dumped on Christmas. I can't remember who was dumped on. There was a couple dumped on Christmas, so a lot of them were dumped on Sunday nights. Probably, you know, like why was Dakota James found on a Monday morning?
Is there
The Sunday
any
Night Super
compelling
Five.
evidence at all that this is all just happenstance? Is there anything at all that tells you that this might not be one big ring?
That it's one big what?
Like I'm saying, like is that like is there any part of you that could devil's advocate your own belief on this?
I just when you see
No.
there
All right.
isn't, because, and this is the reason why. Some of these people are upright and walking around and fine. Kelleher, Marr, they're not stumbling drunk.
Yeah, on the CCTV.
Garcia. So
Right.
yeah, well, here's an interesting thing in my documentary. I'll give you some of the end stuff.
Yeah.
There was a serial killer outside of London. His name was Port, P-O-R-T, and he was drugging men. And
Having
he,
sex
when
with
he
them,
was,
yeah, I remember.
he was having sex with them, and
Way
he
to
would
ruin the reveal, bro.
What's up? Yeah, this is it. This is part of it. This is an important case, though.
Yeah,
because
he just got
for
caught
a
last year.
variety of reasons. There was one body found outside of his place. He gave some story to the police.
In
They
a
didn't arrest
cemetery,
him.
right?
Right, and so then he was taking the bodies to a church cemetery and propping them up and faking suicide notes. So you see this thinking, this intelligence behind trying to fool the police, and he did fool the police, to fool the police into thinking something else was happening. So he faked one suicide note, but this one woman who was walking her dog found two of the bodies, and the police never keyed in to him as a suspect. He was living nearby, and one of the family. This is crucial to all of these cases. One of the families told the police, "I want to see the CCTV of my brother. I want to see where he walked." And the police were, I think they denied it, and I think they had to go to court or something to get the CCTV. Well, when the family sees the CCTV of their brother who died, they go, "Who is this guy walking with my brother?" And it was Stephen Port. It was the serial killer, and that's how he got caught.
Oh my gosh.
It was because
That's all
of
it
the
took.
families involved. That's how he got caught. And then the police went through and did an inquest, an analysis of all this. They said, this guy, Stephen Port was drugging people for years.
He was giving
We
them
don't even know how many
massive
people he
amounts
killed.
of. He was giving them massive amounts of GHB and literally raping the.
How would he?
Yeah.
He would just drop
Their
in a
lifeless
drink or
bodies.
something, or
And he was on a lot of these gay dating sites, which a lot of these young men were also. Joey LaBute, Dakota James were probably on these gay sites. So
yeah.
Stephen Port is a perfect, I
Grindr.
think, exemplar of what I think this phenomenon is happening.
You-
It's just that somebody else out there is doing something different than Port. I don't want to give it away, but
Yeah.
yeah. Port was remarkable. It's a remarkable case.
Wow.
And I think that the final inquest isn't out, or it's out within the next last month or 2 months from now, where they went back. I think that there were 17 cops who were censured over the Port case for bungling it,
But because there's some homophobia here as well, isn't there, William?
I think that there's an element of this that they don't want to touch, and because of homophobia, or just like they're sensitive about these cases for the political correct.
Political
Yeah.
correctness.
That's really
yeah.
When I
interesting.
first started researching the cases, I didn't understand the homosexual current that was involved in it. I didn't understand. And I'm not saying all these cases are, but that's why they're all young and healthy.
Right.
Generally, and there's guys like this guy Apperly's 38. He's older, the guy in Thailand. So but they're generally, the mean is 24, 23, college age.
So,
But yeah.
William, would you say that parents sending their kids to colleges and universities, that I don't think people need to be fearful, but these kids, these young men, they need to be schooled at least into how to protect themselves, right?
Absolutely.
When they're going out drinking
it's
and stuff.
interesting. I've been sent, and I've seen the victims who survived. The guys who said, there was the older man came up to me, asked me some questions. It was weird. He wanted to buy me a drink, blah, blah, blah. So there clearly are, and I included in my case a guy who got drugged at a bar in Boston and wandered around for 2 hours. He didn't even know what happened to him. When he went to court, he told the judge, "I'm sorry, I don't even know. Just watch your drink. You don't want to get drugged." So there are guys who have luckily survived these cases. There's a couple cases in case studies in drowning forensics. And just because you're a man doesn't mean you can't get drugged.
Right.
Because women are very careful. You can't even. Women will watch their drink like a hawk. You know.
Right.
They know that it's out there, but the men don't.
Right. We don't know better, you know, but maybe that's a good lesson.
Nobody's fine.
Yeah, man, that shit happens in Thailand as well all the time. That men will get, unfortunately, not murdered, but they'll get their phone and their money and stuff
Still
stolen.
robbery, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Thailand is rough, man. There's a lot of stuff that goes wrong in Thailand. Holy smokes!
But yeah, I mean, for us, because we're all three of us are sat here now in a bar above Soy 33 on Sukhumvit, and we're all safe. We know our way around the place, Jimmy. Right?
Yeah.
But I'll say, like, I think it's really tourist areas. If you get hammered and you're stumbling around, people will have no problem pulling the wallet out of the back of your pocket.
Sure.
Or if you're really crazy, you can find yourself in a pretty
That's
shady
true.
situation.
I'm pretty sure that that's true of a lot of major cities with tourist areas. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. If you're going to go down and I want to look for a victim.
Yeah.
I'm going to go somewhere where this person's an outsider.
Yeah, they're not going to remember
They don't
shit.
really know what's happening. They don't,
But,
so
yeah.
that's kind of...
Doesn't hearing this and talking about this kind of crystallize how many times you've kind of put yourself in a similar situation?
At risk.
I've been drugged before. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go on,
Where did that happen?
Tell us about that.
In Bangkok.
Come on, then.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Well, there's not really too much to tell because I can't fucking remember anything, man. But no, seriously, where was it? It was, Jesus Christ,
In a bar.
Yeah. But basically, all I remember is feeling very not myself, waking up. No, not waking up. Just being completely sort of groggy somewhere. And then I was asleep for a full 1.5 days.
Wow.
Woke up and everything had been stolen.
Any inclination as to how it may have happened?
Absolutely. There's no way that I would have sort of gone through what I'd gone through if I hadn't have been drugged.
But where did you wake up? In your house?
In
who
my
might have,
place,
Who might have done it?
Okay.
Who might have done it?
I don't know.
No idea.
No
Lady
idea.
Boys.
Yeah.
No idea.
It's important to
All
know
I
where you
remember
were.
is I slept through a full day, man.
That's wild.
And
Yeah.
I don't know how much,
So what I want to do is try and crystallize for our listeners, William. So this is called the smiley face killer, right? There's
But
hundreds
it's like
of
a half
people.
misnomer. It's kind of a misnomer. It's just the name that's been attached to this
Right.
kind of phenomenon.
Okay, but tell our listeners exactly what's going on. There's hundreds of people worldwide that are young males that have been found in bodies of water, and it's under strange circumstances, and these places have been checked and they've been searched, and yet these people are found there, and this is there's too many fucking weird coincidences, right, William, for this to be.
It's beyond coincidence.
Yeah.
It's the same MO. I mean, I haven't studied all of the Sydney cases, but like Sydney, like there was one article, like 80 men have been dumped in Sydney. Whether they're all accidental, I don't know what the totality is. I don't think the Manchester pusher number that's been bandied around is like 60 or 80, but that's way too high. I've studied those, but there's at least 10. There was one recently, Casper Blackburn, 10 who are young men, and I covered a lot of them. In my case, Subic Powell, I got the information from Gary J that he talked to his dad. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. Anyway,
on the phone. Yeah,
well, that's another one. They actually, Subic Powell is a lot like the Port cases because they actually have the CCTV video of some stranger walking up to him after he left the bar, and then the cops didn't figure out who that person was.
Yeah, and they're often found upstream, aren't they, of where
Upstream.
they
There's
disappeared.
another one I covered. Another guy, Arvind Sharma, who walked into he was close to an S&M bar, and his brother said, for the record, that his other Arvind probably saw something he wasn't supposed to. Disappeared, found 9 days later up the Anacostia River from where he was. How did he end up over? So he's disappeared. I mean, these cases, when you look at them all, I would recommend you guys sit down and watch the documentary.
Yeah.
Because all the facts are there.
Awesome. We definitely will.
Yeah.
Can we pop into some more current events? You know, some other stuff
Of
you've
course,
been
yeah.
digging into. What other kind of stuff have you been looking into or researching lately?
Well, what have I mean, you know, I really would say the general themes are like the occultism. So I was very much into, you know, the Podesta emails.
Oh,
Pizzagate.
You know, I kind of followed that. Pizzagate, the failure to actually investigate that, which
Yeah,
was
it
a
just
monstrosity.
disappeared. It just disappeared, didn't it? In a very strange way.
That was covered up. I mean, you know, and Alephantis is.
Nothing strange about the way it disappeared at all.
Yeah, well, it's
For
interesting.
fuck's sake, mate, you're dealing with a Clinton crime family. You're dealing with, it predictably went away in the way that it did, right?
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you not think so? A compliant media, a bunch of corrupt politicians, and
People getting paid off, and the lawyers. You got to remember, the lawyers are corrupt too. There were two
Yeah.
attorneys associated with Pizzagate who were members of the local, federal. I mean, I think it was the federal or state prosecutor. I can't remember their names, but there were two guys in there who were leaving messages on Alephantis' Instagram, who were also the overseers of the law. So of course, you know, if they're putting the corrupt people into those spots, I mean, we know that McCabe, who was number 2 or number 3 at the FBI, his wife got a $700,000 award from the DNC through what was it, Macaulay or whatever. So these guys, you know, there's all this
And
dirty
James
money going on.
Elephantis is James les enfants, right? I love children. You know,
Well, there's an interesting tie-in between him and these SFK cases because his avatar on Instagram was this young man who was this kind of young gay ideal by the name. He was the lover of Emperor Hadrian. His name was Antinous or Antinous.
yeah.
And he was either murdered or accidentally drowned in the Nile River. Some people speculate he was ritually murdered when he was young, but drowned in the Nile. So
So this is
some people-
symbolism, right? This is symbolism, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't want to get it. There's occult stuff. There's some of these cases, if you watch the documentary.
So what was
Clearly occult
James
stuff.
Elephantis' ex-boyfriend called? The grey-haired?
Yeah, it was the guy from Media Matters.
Yeah,
That guy?
who's now in jail. I can't remember.
Is he in
his
jail?
name.
I don't know. I heard that.
I thought he got done for something.
He's still posting creepy stuff on his Instagram, is my understanding.
Oh man, what's he called?
wow.
To
Jeez.
this day, yeah.
What's he called? The grey-haired guy who's on the stairs in that photo.
Yeah, no,
where
I know.
there's-
He's sitting, and then there's Lady Rothschild with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Fuck.
His
that's-
name is.
Come on, William. You can do it. You can remember. You can do it.
I went to school. I went to
It's not
Berkeley
George,
with
or-
that guy. He was I probably walked by him when he was at Berkeley back in my day.
George or something like that. Anyway, no, we're not going to remember.
So you
all.
reckon it's not just the media and they're in the Clintons' pockets or whoever. It's the judges and everybody is in on this.
David Brock is the name. I think that there's
David Brock,
stuff
yes,
that's
thank you.
super dirty. You know, the reality is that the people in power appoint. They
Right.
have incredible appointments throughout the whole legal system of the United States. You know,
Right.
They appoint federal judges, and they're politicized.
So do you subscribe to this this sort of theme that people who are appointed are compromised before they're appointed?
Absolutely.
So
Oh
something.
well, I don't know how the
Yeah.
totality of the compromise. I mean, you can look at Pizzagate as a big blackmail scheme, as people being shipped around, human trafficking.
Yeah.
They just had a report today that 1,500 young kids who've come to the United States, they've lost their, lost space with them. Like, where did they go?
Whereabouts.
So
Yeah.
you see all this disorganization and
and then you've got Laura Silsby from Haiti. You've got,
that's what you know. Dude, there's a tie-in that things go back to Haiti that people died associated with those things. There was one, Monica Peterson, it's a totally suspicious death in Haiti. They did not want that investigated at all, and they don't want anything associated with Epstein investigated either. Who was down in that neck of the woods? Where the tie-ins. some of the report. I mean, it's off the charts, dude. It's literally unchartable, and it's I mean, apparently Epstein is. I don't even want to get into it. But
well,
this stuff is still going on.
I'll tell you something about Epstein. I think it's Mike Cernovich who's submitted some sort of a because the files, they could not be opened, right? It was by instruction of the court. And now it's Epstein, I think it's the Miami Herald and a few other newspapers that have submitted, I don't know what the legal term is for this, but for these documents to be made available. Have you heard anything about that?
Look, be careful with that. Just be careful with that, because Cernovich is positioning himself as a white knight, but some of the stuff that would be released are the names of the accusers of Epstein, which were sealed. And that would so I would take a very serious look back at his intent and who he's on whose side he is on, because he is pals with Dershowitz. There's pictures of him with Alan Dershowitz, who is now, I believe, on the defense team.
We're talking about Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. And Dershowitz was alleged to be involved. Well, what's the girl's name? Giuffre accused him of he had statutory sex with her, according to her, not him, but according to her, and he was involved in the Epstein case. And is apparently, I think he's on the defense team of Weinstein now, or associated with it.
Interesting.
Wow.
And you can take him and go back and who did he? The defense of the guy who killed his wife. What was his name? Vaughn. I can't remember.
O.J.
What was the name
Simpson.
of? No, he was on Simpson too.
He did OJ. Yeah. Was it Peterson?
No, there was another one. There was another.
It wasn't Peterson, right?
Peterson.
What's
Scott Peterson.
There was another guy, and there was a movie made about it. And the guy poisoned his wife with a syringe. House von Bülow.
But you're saying be careful about Cernovich's intentions, right?
I got to go back and reach it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, no worries.
He's
He's a bit of a strange cat, isn't he, Cernovich? Yes. He's
why?
Well, I haven't been able to really sort of. He sort of morphs and moves, and
you can't pin him down.
Yeah, I mean, you can pin a lot of things down, but I agree. As soon as said, intentions. I'm like, yeah.
I researched that last year, and I was like, oh, he's doing a favor for the public, but he's actually. I got to go back and reread that. There's a sketchy aspect to what he's up to with that writ.
Yeah, and I've seen him in 2 or 3 interviews where just a couple of things, they're just sort of, they sat with me, they didn't make sense. There's things that he's definitely missing out, which is fair enough, but it's the intent that's behind that, intentions are, intent is a very, very powerful thing, man, isn't it? Yeah.
So can we finish, William, with Seth Rich?
Ooh, good one, yeah.
Can you tell us what you know about the Seth Rich case?
Well, obviously murdered, not robbed. There's a lot of deception about the story of him. His family doesn't want to disclose something. There's never been an autopsy that's been made public. There's been statements from the hospital that he took shots to the torso, so the notion that he was shot in the back may be false, that the actual bullet, where he was shot, is different. And some of the stories about him talking to his girlfriend may not be true either. So.
And just for our listeners, to make it a standalone podcast, what was the problem with Seth Rich? Why did he have to be eliminated? Because he knew some stuff about the DNC, right?
Right, he was in the DNC. I think what they've done is they minimized his involvement at the DNC, but he was actually the head of a certain department at the DNC, and he was a Bernie supporter. And I mean, basically, I don't think they came out and said, but Julian Assange pretty much insinuated that he was the main leaker.
Yeah, Assange said something, didn't he? Really weird. Like,
What did he say?
there are certain consequences for
certain
giving me
consequences. We will
information.
try to protect our sources in reference to Seth Rich. Like they're talking about Seth Rich. He just doesn't say Seth
So
Rich.
it's very thinly veiled.
But why would they kill him, William? Because what was he leaking? That basically the DNC railroaded Bernie out of the running. They basically
Railroaded
fucked him
all
up.
the Podesta stuff, the pedophilia.
Yeah.
I've got a map, a minor attracted person with a handkerchief. You know, blah blah. I mean,
Yeah.
just the stuff there is super sketchy. Podesta says, "I'm down in the dungeon. Don't bother me." What
In the
dungeon?
kill
are you
room. In the kill room.
Yeah, kill room. All
yeah.
this kind of crazy
I've got
stuff.
a map.
man.
I've got a map that's pizza related.
Right. Oh, all that stuff. And I mean, so, and it all ties in with Alephantis's Instagram. It just overlaps. And so, yeah, I mean, the corruption is off the charts. So anyway, the campaign to get Hillary into the presidency was just that, a military campaign.
Yeah.
It involved a whole bunch of different people, and anybody who said anything about her illness were intimidated. People were getting murdered. Seth Rich was one of many. There's a lot of dead bodies around on the drive to get her into power.
Oh man, it's
And-
dirty.
Any others?
Yeah,
like
So,
any other
come on, spill the beans.
Any other what?
names, the body count? Yeah.
Well, there was a guy who suspiciously died. His name was, well, I know his real name. What was his pen name? Was Victor Thorne, who had written books about them. He suspiciously died.
Huh.
There was a guy from the UN who supposedly dropped a barbell on his throat, and he died. He was an African American guy who knew too much. Yeah, I mean, I got to go back and look at these lists, but yeah, there was a lot of suspicious stuff that happened on the way to. I mean, she flopped, and September 11th, 2016, she got taken off in that weird black granny / van. I mean, they literally picked her up like she still is sick. I mean, they took pictures of her yesterday in 80-degree weather, and she's wearing this big, thick jacket. And she may have a full body brace to keep her upright. I mean, they don't even know.
I mean, if you
They
looked
took
at
that picture
her,
of something behind her back. She's got like a shelf coming out of her back. Is she wearing a body brace? What's going on? Yeah. Oh, they kept that all a secret. So anyway. The guy's name.
So what do you make of living in a world where all this is true in your mind or likely, in general? What a freaking crazy world we're in.
Crazy. It's devolving. It's really
Devolving.
devolving. Yeah. It's not evolving better. It's devolving. And I mean, it's odd that the president is under investigation, but they're kind of on a fishing expedition without that much. And she's walking around free
In a body
with
brace.
obvious criminal stuff. I mean, they've got so much information. She had special access information on her hardtop. You know how to get that? You have to go into like a secret room. How do you get that out? Like anybody else, you got this one guy taking pictures of a sub, accidentally goes to jail, and she's walking around free. Come on, this is not. You cannot call it equality under the law.
Right. And also
the foundation's a massive fraud, dude.
and also you got the Russians, hacked our servers. Well,
It's fake. That's just a fake story.
where's the forensic analysis of the server? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, why didn't the DNC give that over?
So
They're two-faced. It's obvious two-faced.
fucking bizarre.
It's not bizarre. It's just super corruption.
But it's
total
predictable
evil,
as well, isn't it?
Poor managers. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm trying to find this thing for Cernovich. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But I actually did interview. I did investigate.
So William, look.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, this has been a dream come true to have you on tonight. You've literally spent hundreds of hours in my ears on the Opperman report.
Yeah, I'll say you're in the Mount Rushmore of guests. We're only about 11 deep so far, but you're definitely on the Mount Rushmore. And
That's a brilliant way of putting it.
Yeah. So, firstly, what I want to tell people, William, is where they can find the Smiley Face Killer documentary.
It's on Vimeo right now. It's a lot easier to watch it online. I can send you a disc if you're in the U.S., but it's at Vimeo, and you can type in my name, William Ramsey, or Smiley Face. So you can stream it. You have a choice for a week. It's $5. You can watch it for a week, or you can buy it for, I think, 12 or 10.
So reasonable.
I Googled you, and you're kind of one of a few famous William Ramseys.
I think there was a theologian, right?
Yeah, there's a few Wikipedia, like when you go to Wikipedia and there's like a disambiguation, there was like several. I was like, whoa.
So where can people get hold of you, William, if they want to contact you or they want to?
Well, I have a YouTube channel. You can
books?
you can watch all my YouTube channel. William Ramsey Investigates. All my books are on Amazon. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. So I'm kind of around.
What's your Twitter handle?
Seem to be able to find me. Twitter is occult911.
All right.
Oh, nice. That's super juicy. William, thank you so much. This has been This Strange Life. I'm what am I?
At Crypto Mickey.
Yeah, I'm at Crypto Mickey on Twitter. Come and follow me. Come and find me. Where are you, Willie? Where can people find you?
At Willie Delius on Twitter, and kick it over to James.
And I'm Jimmy, hiding behind a tree this week.
And as always, guys, please rate, subscribe, and review us on iTunes because it means so much to Jimmy. Like he takes it very personally.
I get up every morning, don't I?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you guys see?
How many rates and reviews have you had? You ask us that question every morning.
I know.
Fail.
Yeah, I know.
But it does mean a lot, and it lifts us up in the positions in iTunes, and it makes us more visible. And
I thought you were going to say it lifts us up, as human beings,
mentally and
spiritually,
physically. Yeah, it does that too. William, thank you so much, brother.
Yep.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, William.
Cheers. See you guys.
Hi, this is Mickey. Thanks for tuning in today. Great show as usual. I just wanted to give a round up of today's sponsors. Firstly, KKC Koala Cash Coin. New Masternode coin. It's fantastic and it's cheap. And the dev are super hard working, and they're specifically working on a market segment for mobile and cell phones to test on this platform. But it could be used for any commodity or service, and they hope to launch this platform in the next few months in the Asia Pacific region, as investors they are partnering with are in that area. We spent a lot of time looking at the development team. We really like them, and they've been previously involved in this community takeover, which they've handled really well. So KKC, you can buy Masternode now for 0.08 BTC, about $700 in pre-sale. Go and find them at kkc.space. And there's also a Discord and Telegram and Bitcoin Talk thread that you can go to. The second sponsor is BWS. Bitcoin W Spectrum, a community-run, eco-friendly proof-of-stake project that rose from the ashes. Again, it's another community takeover. And why do we love community takeovers? Because it's better to rescue an old crypto project than have a load of dead ones lying around. So, again, awesome and experienced development team. They've already, what they're going to do is they're going to be a gateway. They're going to have merchants basically on their platform, and they've already got a couple, and we've got masternodes coming, and they're already on loads of exchanges: Crypto Bridge, Stocks Exchange, South Exchange, OctaX, Byte BTC, and more. Go to bitcoinwspectrum.com or follow them on Twitter at bitcoinwspectrum. Thanks, guys. Peace out. Go check them out. We really do vet all the projects that we sponsor, that we ask to sponsor us. We do vet them all, and they're all great projects. They've all been through my red flag, green flag, patented system of scoring, and it's great. So go and check them out. BWS, Bitcoin W Spectrum, and KKC Koala Cash Coin. Peace out. I'm Mickey.